In this video, I'm going to share with you the cheat code to The Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. Now, if you've been struggling and you've been trying to feel it, but nothing is changing, or if you're having a hard time understanding of how you can feel something you've not yet experienced, this video is going to bring you clarity and the practical steps you can take to change it. Now, these are things that I have used in my life personally to help me shift out of an old dynamic. That dynamic being rejection, abandonment, and consistently not feeling good enough for a romantic relationship. After doing what I'm going to share with you later in this video, it helped me to completely change my self-image, understand how to tap into the feeling, and begin to attract stable, reliable, and secure connections. Now, I want to start this video in the words of Neville describing how important the feeling is. The first quote I want to share is, "Whatever the mind of man or woman can conceive and feel as true, the subconscious can and must objectify it. Your feelings create the pattern from which the world is fashioned, and a change of feeling is a change of pattern." So whatever you can imagine to be true and feel is true, which we're going to get into later in this video, because this is where a lot of people get stopped or blocked or have a hard time with. Whatever that happens, the subconscious, the feeling part, is the gateway. And when the subconscious accepts that as truth, it's going to objectify it. It's going to find it out in the world and attract it to you. All of the patterns that might be playing out in your life are coming from the subconscious realm. And when you learn to feel differently, you can start to break out of them. Now, the second quote I want to share with you is, "Man moves in a world that is nothing more or any less than his consciousness objectified," meaning that as you go through life, you will only be able to attract to you, interact with whatever is equal to your consciousness or your vibration. However you believe yourself to be, those assumptions essentially create the lenses of how we see our reality, and then our subconscious will objectify it. It will see it and it will bring it to us. And the last quote that I want to share with you on how important the feeling really is in terms of changing any unwanted circumstances in your life, calling your desire into being, so making your desire being able to be experienced, it happens by imagining and feeling your wish fulfilled. As the end is accepted, now realize, as the end is accepted, meaning you feel it to be true at the subconscious level, you become totally indifferent as to possible failure. So you're not so wrapped up in the outside, constantly checking in, constantly seeing how other people are, what are they doing, because you know a deeper truth at the level of your consciousness. For acceptance of the end, that is what wills the means to the end. So as you accept it to be part of you, as you attach those feelings and those meanings into your self-concept at the assumption subconscious level, that is what will change everything. But now let's get into how in the world you can start to do this, especially if you've been trying and seeing no results. If you remember from the last quote, Neville says, call your desires into being by imagining. Okay, so if you want your desire to come into your circumstances, you first must use your mind to imagine it, to create a vision. Now, the second part, in order to bring that desire into your reality, is to feel it. Okay, so feeling is the sensory level. Feeling is at the level of your subconscious. Your subconscious accepts things to be true through feeling. If something doesn't feel safe, it's going to reject it. It's going to keep you away from it. So in the realm of your subconscious is where all your assumptions are stored. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But so in order for you to tap into this, the first and foremost thing you got to do, step one, imagine it, mental. Step two, feel it, sensory. Okay? But most people, they do this. They try to think of the feeling. They imagine it. Step one, good. Then they try to imagine the feeling. But feelings are not thoughts. Those are not the same things. We have to learn how to incorporate our body in order to actually get to the depth of the sensory level. So this is where most people basically give away all their power. They're thinking and they're thinking and they're thinking and they're thinking of the feeling, of the experience. If I had that person, then that thought would be, and it's like you're a third person watching that experience. So all that stays up in your mind. Nothing's actually coming into the feeling realm. You can't think of the feeling to feel it. You have to set it in your mind and then use your physical body to start to feel it. Now, it's also important to realize that the feeling is not one flash of an emotion. It's a sustained state of feelings. Now, an emotion is part of a feeling, but think about a feeling as more of an attitude, more of a lens of how you see the world. It's going to be a more consistent, sustained emotional aspect. But it also involves faith that even if the circumstances you're in your life right now are maybe rocky or not what you want, that feeling and the way you see yourself and your access to doing something about it, your sense of autonomy and agency over your life are going to heavily influence your actual sustained feeling. This is what also gets a lot of people. Well, yeah, I'd really love to feel the feeling of being in a relationship, but some people never been in maybe a secure relationship that has, lasted for a while, or you might not have yet been in a relationship. That's okay. But what happens is, well, I don't know how to feel like I'm in a relationship. So this is the first hack to get you kind of jump started. You'll have to learn to sustain this, which I'm going to show you a little bit later on in the second step here. But it's just like training. It's like a muscle. You're going to start with a spark, which will just be an emotion, so that you can start to influence your body and feel what that feels like by past experiences. But you're also going to need to work on sustaining that. But the first step is the spark. How can we start that fire that's our bonfire of feeling without a spark? So one hack that I used to help me with this, because I kept being rejected. Nothing I seemed to do would work. The people I had been attracting weren't emotionally available. So how could I feel like I was in a relationship with somebody emotionally available when I had yet to experience that at the time? Since I did this, I have had those emotional experiences and they're beautiful. But the first step is, okay, well, it's, yes, the person, but there is an attachment of experience that you'll have in the relationship. You could associate that you'll have a feeling of connection, of maybe belonging. Maybe it's about security, right? So the hack is essentially to see, oh, this is actually what I'm looking for in that wish fulfilled. That's the end emotional experience, which would be in the sustained state of feeling a viewpoint of the world and of yourself having to do with assumptions, having to do with your self-concept. But the spark to start the bonfire is going to be starting to understand, oh, I'm looking for connection. I'm looking for belonging with this experience, which is great. But how can I start to associate myself with having a sense of belonging or having security? Have I ever felt that, even in a tiny, tiny flash of emotion? Because if that's the case, you're starting to remove your feeling of having separation because you've had it before, okay? So maybe it's about a job. So you don't just want to show up at a building and receive a paycheck, right? What you're really looking out of that for that career could be a feeling of stability, right? It's going to help meet that need of maybe a sense of freedom or maybe even a sense of significance. But these tiny sparks are going to call on past memories, even in a flash of emotion. If you've ever felt a sense of freedom, if you've ever felt a sense of stability, realize, oh, I felt that feeling. I have a database of that experience in my body, and I can go and leverage that, remember that, and then start to go back to my imagination as I'm learning to feel this feeling and start to work on that stabilization of that emotion, of that vantage point, of having faith that I am able to do that by repetitions. So this is the first hack, is what are you actually looking for? What is that feeling looking for? Starting with an emotion is going to be the spark of the bonfire of what creates that feeling. Now remember, one flash of emotion can start things, But to really tap into the feeling, you're going to have to sustain it. But oftentimes what happens is as we get into it, we might have some resistance. So now let me show you what to do with resistance. If this video is resonating and you want a little bit more help on how you can start to leverage this in your own life, I am offering one-on-one sessions. We will sit down over Zoom. I will help you become more aware of the pattern so that you can start to break out of it and create the assumptions by letting go of all those negative beliefs and old assumptions so that you can step into the experiences that you deserve. If this is resonating, go ahead and click that link below and I will email you. So how do you deal with resistance when maybe you're trying to feel this feeling, things are going good, and then all of a sudden something changes in your body and it's like you can't tap into the feeling? Or maybe you're going along and feeling good and then something outside of you is showing you that that's not for you or that it won't happen. Well, I want you to start to understand this at the deeper level. So you don't see the world or reality through your eyes, you see it through your assumptions. So right now, as you're trying to tap into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, but you're looking through or feeling through your assumptions and realize your assumptions are a collection of past experiences that are trying to keep you safe. So when you approach this desire, you might feel like it's not safe, but that's through the assumptions, which is the lens of the past. So if you were growing up and you were taught that if you had what you needed, you were selfish. You would not want to be selfish because selfish people are outcasts. They don't get love. They don't get connection. So as you're moving to having maybe $1 million and your family said, no, greedy people have $1 million. Rich people are mean. They're bad people. And internally, unconscious, at the realm of the assumptions, you're saying, well, I can't have $1 million. That's not safe. If I had $1 million, I would lose my family connection. I wouldn't have people around me. So you'll desire it consciously, but unconsciously, the assumptions will block you. Why? Because they're trying to keep you safe. But the safety is based on the past experience when you didn't have autonomy, when you didn't have agency, and you kind of had to deal with whatever environment you were in, and you didn't have any action to take, so you can feel powerless. And when this happens, it makes you feel exactly like you did when this originally occurred. Powerless, hopeless, helpless, and stuck. That is a major, write those down, put them everywhere, because when you feel those things, you know you're in the past. Because if you're an adult right now watching this video, you have the power to make a change. But when the assumption pops up, when you reach for the thing outside your realm of comfort or outside your realm of safety, these assumptions are going to pop up and make you feel like you can't move on. So maybe this wish fulfilled right now is a romantic relationship. But in the past, when you went for connection, you got rejected. And again, this could have been anywhere from 0 to 7 years old as the primary experience. And then throughout your life, you could have had more, reiterating that this is true. But this is just a lens that's trying to keep you safe based on past experiences. That's why when you change this lens, right, when you have a higher level of consciousness, awareness, when you understand the story and step out of it, when you change what's in your assumptions, you literally change your access. So if this was an assumption that if I move close to love, I'm going to get hurt, they're going to reject me, you have separation, and what you're feeling is your assumption of I'm not good enough. You could either chase people or avoid people. Same wound of I'm not safe if I connect. But as you start to work on this and remove this assumption, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit, you basically allow this. You allow a break for you to actually start to connect here. But as long as this assumption's here and you don't feel safe, you will feel blocked from it. And this is a major stopping point for most people because you will not ever feel something is true if it feels scary. You can override this with your conscious awareness, which is the next part, but you're going to have to understand the overview so you'll know where you are and you can start to make choices from a higher level of mind. So the next part of the cheat code is to start to become aware of the story or meaning you put on situations. Now, this might sound simple, but you're going to gain so much awareness. And when you have that awareness, that's what's going to allow you to step out of that old assumption. So how do you do this? Well, an event will pop up. And how do you know what this event is? When you start to physiologically feel rejected, abandoned, not loved, not good enough, any of that, your body's going to respond. So maybe you don't get an invite. Maybe a group of friends goes out, you see them posted on Facebook or Instagram, and you're like, wait a second, I thought we were friends. Why didn't I get invited? What story do you put on that? What meaning as to why they didn't invite you? Oh, well, the reason that they didn't invite me is because no one ever sees me as good enough. No one ever loves me. I'm always excluded. I didn't work hard enough. Maybe if I would have done this, this, or that. That's based on the past. That's based on the old feeling, the old assumption. So if in this moment, if you're spending 3 hours in the morning feeling the feeling, and then you check Facebook and you look and you say, they didn't invite me. Oh, it's because I'm not good enough. Oh, yeah. I always find people who's going to stab me in the back. They're always, grouped together away from me. Oh, in that moment, I actually chose that old feeling. Now I'm separate from the wish fulfilled because of the interpretation I am seeing this through. That's massive. Let me show you how this works in real time. We're going back to minding the gap. This is where the massive amount of change will happen. This is where you can massively tap into the feeling is a secret, because experience is what shapes your brain. When you have experiences feeling the feeling and making that choice, it will literally rewire your brain by firing and wiring in a new way and pruning apart by not firing and not wiring. So it's going to happen like this. Here's the gap. What is a gap? What we just talked about. Any event where you perceive rejection, abandonment, and you start to tell the story, oh, what is this meaning? What story are you going to put on that? So again, in that situation, oh, okay, I didn't get an invite. Okay, I'm starting to feel rejected. My body's starting to feel anxious. I'm starting to feel sad. I feel like I've been kicked in the stomach. Okay, hang on a second. The story I'm telling myself is that they rejected me, that I'm not good enough, I'm not included. Okay, I'm aware, I'm starting to be aware, and I'm starting to step out, almost out of frame. I'm starting to step out of the story by my breath, and I want to stay in my body. Feel it, you can jump around, you want to just physiologically feel your body to somatically stay in the experience, meaning that you don't just mentally ghost yourself. Okay, I'm going to breathe, which I was just showing. I really want to tell that old story that I'm not good enough, but that is not towards the wish fulfilled. I've got to shift at the consciousness level. I've got to realize that I am good enough. I'm not sure why they didn't invite me. I can follow up later. I can ask what happened. I can share like, wow, I would have really loved to go. I felt a little left out, but I understand whatever the situation. But in that, knowing that it was not what you lacked. It was not what you didn't do. It's not that you're not good enough. That's staying in the new feeling, that new feeling based on the assumption that you are good enough, that you are lovable. But to tell this story, oh, they did it because no one ever loves me. I'm not good enough. Here we go again. I'm going to be rejected. So the past now comes in and it recreates the old. So a massive way to start to tap into the feeling is to start to be aware of the gap and mind your ABCs. Awareness, breath, and new choice. What choice of meaning would that ideal self-concept that experiences the wish fulfilled, what meaning would they put on this? What assumptions do you need to start to get into in order to start to be able to maintain the feeling and connection to that version of yourself? The more and more you do this, the more and more natural it will feel to sustain that feeling and start to see that feeling in that new lens, and you'll begin to attract people, situations, and circumstances equal to that level of consciousness. You deserve this. You are worth the experiences that you seek. Now, you might still be feeling like, I still don't understand how I'm supposed to feel something I've never experienced. Well, don't worry. I made this video right here to help you better understand so that you can leverage the power that Neville talked about. So check that video out right here.